rounding third with home plate in sight. But even the best players need a coach to wave them in. Safe! Welcome to Perfect Game Retirement, hosted by Ryan Ledden, former pro baseball player, University of Georgia economics graduate, and now certified financial planner with Black Oak Asset Management. He's here to guide you through the final stretch and help you slide safely into a winning retirement. Play ball!
This is Perfect Game Retirement with Ryan Ledden at Black Oak Asset Management. He's a certified financial planner and president as well. They have offices in Alpharetta, Macon, and Lawrenceville, Georgia. I am Ben George. We got a good show for you today. Again, look, small mistakes today, we know they can create some big headaches for your family tomorrow, especially when it comes to estate planning. So today we're going to cover some of the most common errors that can derail your legacy. Plus, we're going to bust some of the biggest Social Security myths that could cost you thousands in retirement. We're going to separate fact from fiction today, and also we're going to update you on the latest COLA increase as well. So it's going to be a great show. Glad that you're here with us. Ryan, how are you today?
Yeah, doing well, man. This is we're on the doorsteps of Thanksgiving, which is absolutely crazy to think about how quickly again it continues to go. But yeah, just a shout out to, if you're listening, all the travel ball parents during fall baseball and softball season. If you're listening. Getting to those 8 a.m. games, it was kind of funny. We had a baseball tournament, and the guy I coach with on my son's travel ball team, he was kind of joking with me. He's like, "Oh man, I was listening to a financial planning show and got some great tips and got some great advice." And I just kind of look at him, and he's just kind of giggling. I'm like, "Well, you know what? It may be a lot of travel ball parents that are listening to this show early on a Sunday morning." So shout out to all you getting your kids to games where your kids may be asleep in the car right now.
Not because the show put them to sleep, just because they're slow to wake up, right? For sure. Well, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for being a part of the show. And we always appreciate you being here with us every week. And that's why we also give you the opportunity to schedule a complimentary consultation with Ryan with Black Oak Asset Management. You can do so by calling 800-388-0085. Take advantage of that complimentary consultation by calling 800-388-0085, a great opportunity to get a better idea of where you stand, where you need to go, and how you're going to get there. It all begins by calling 800-388-0085. So, Ryan, I want to kick off today by talking about some estate planning mistakes, because I don't know that everyone thinks about estate planning when they think about a financial advisor, but this is still one piece of the overall planning you do with clients, right?
Oh, it's a huge part of it, and it's kind of gaining more interest to myself and really focusing on this. Obviously, it was a big part of the CFP exam and a big part of what we do as a CFP, certified financial planner. But I'm even looking at just digging into more certifications and designations when it comes to the estate planning side, because there's just so many pitfalls that you may fall into, and sometimes you can't recover from them. But planning ahead and doing these things ahead of time is just a huge part of it. So, and I've seen some very common mistakes that just you scratch your head and going, "Oh my goodness!" But again, that's kind of my job, our job here in the offices, to talk about these things, update things that we need to. But this is a huge piece of the puzzle when it comes to a full-blown financial plan.
All right, so we're going to talk about some of the most common estate planning mistakes, make sure you're aware of them, and then hopefully avoid them as well. So one of the big ones, Ryan, is this failing to plan for expenses that can be unforeseen, especially healthcare. I mean, this can really eat into what you have, right?
Yeah, healthcare is probably the most known thing that people talk about when it comes to their estate plan and how we're going to address that. But how are you going to cover those long-term care expenses if you have it without, just draining your savings? What are some things that we can do? I mean, obviously there's, the traditional long-term care insurance, which sometimes can get too expensive, or maybe if you tried too late to get it and they denied you or declined you. Sometimes there are some life insurance hybrids out there that you can spend your death benefit essentially on long-term care expenses. So just how does that play into potentially draining some of your assets, and what happens to those who you leave behind? Maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's kids, but really talking about healthcare and the cost that could potentially come about. from an extended stay in a facility or in-home care. That stuff does add up. But if you make a plan for it and talk about these things and how healthcare can affect your estate plan, that's just part of the conversations that we have. And, we had a show last week talking about difficult conversations. Well, these are sometimes those difficult conversations that need to be had.
Yeah, they are difficult conversations for sure, but one you need to work through and make sure you're prepared for, because healthcare and these expenses can really catch you off guard if you are not ready. Another big planning mistake that happens with your estate is just failing to update your beneficiary designations. Now, Ryan, I know a lot of times you kind of set it and forget it when you open up an account and don't really think about it again, but why should you be checking on this pretty consistently, I guess?
Yeah, I guess this is one of the most kind of head scratcher common mistakes that can happen. Like usually it's when we get a client, either they've never worked with an advisor before or worked with another advisory firm, and they move their assets over to us to help them with their planning. But sometimes you see people on the beneficiary form, on the beneficiary designation, that they don't want to have on there anymore. And ex-spouse is the biggest one. I've seen it. I've seen it with clients before, and I'm like, do you realize that so-and-so is listed as your primary beneficiary? Like, oh gosh, I've been meaning to do that. And sometimes life just gets in the way. Sometimes it's not irresponsibility on their part. It's just maybe you don't think about those things. So our job is to say, hey, anything we need to update on your beneficiary designations, because a lot of this stuff, especially IRAs and 401ks, a lot of the pre-tax retirement type stuff, that passes outside of your will. So some people are like, oh, in my will it says this. Well, it doesn't matter. If your beneficiary designations say this person, that's who's going to get it. It doesn't matter what your will says. So we got to make sure those things line up. If you have a will, if you have a trust, whether it's revocable or irrevocable, we need to make sure those accounts are titled correctly and we have the right entities or people on your beneficiary designation. So important. So that right there is estate planning without having to pay for an attorney. That right there is estate planning that you can do with us.
All right. Again, if you want to be prepared, make sure you're discussing your estate plan and other items that go into the overall comprehensive retirement plan. Get in touch now. 800-388-0085. Again, 800-388-0085 to schedule a time to meet with Ryan and begin talking about all these different areas of the planning process. But more importantly, just have an opportunity to get to learn more about Black Oak and vice versa. It begins at 800-388-0085. We're talking about estate planning mistakes here on Perfect Game Retirement. And here's another one, Ryan, that many people will make. It's just failing to take those steps to avoid conflict within their family. That potential litigation that happens among heirs, Ryan. I mean, without communication, without making sure you're doing this the right way, it can just create a lot of problems for your family down the road, can't it?
It can, and communication is the biggest key to have these discussions and talk about it. Sure, legal documentation is the most important. Even what we just mentioned, beneficiary designations are super important. But it just closes the door on a lot of different conflicts that potentially may happen if there's not communication, if there's not legal documentation and beneficiary designations change. But the more this is communicated, the less feelings are hurt. Maybe there's some feelings that will get hurt. Maybe but when you're talking about possessional type things, that's usually where it's kind of funny funny and sad at the same time, how people can break up a family based off of like certain heirlooms or, tools or whatever it may be, and how those things are divvied up. But to have the beneficiary designations is the most important. But we give access to our clients with an online tool that they can create their estate plan, they can create their will, they can create their trust, they can create the medical directives and financial power of attorneys. They can do all that. That's how, working with us, they get access to that. Now, you still may need an attorney. If you got some kind of blended families or complex situations, you may still need to pay an attorney, but a lot of people just need some kind of legal documentation put in place, and we offer that for clients who work with us.
Right. Well, here's another mistake that people make. They decide to transfer their real estate while they're living instead of at death. So I know this is something a lot of people think about, Ryan, how to handle this huge asset. But why could this be a problem?
Yeah, for a few reasons. They're trying to maybe get assets out of their own name. Got to be really careful with that. I'm not saying that's not a strategy to look at, but there is a look back period, and that's usually in most states 5 years. So a look back period of how these assets were given away? Were they sold for $1 for a house, below market value? You have to be really careful with that because it could deny, you being eligible for Medicaid, so you got to be careful with that. Again, it can be strategically planned out. Usually you need an attorney to really make sure you're doing things the right way, and I highly suggest that. But putting people on real estate as far as their names you don't really want to do that because you miss that opportunity of a step up in basis. And what that means is, like, if it's a piece of real estate and your name's not on it and then you inherit it, so whatever the value of that home is at the day of the death of that person, that's the new kind of principal amount that the house is. So if the person bought it for $300,000 and they pass away and it's worth $500,000, well, you get a step up in basis up to that $500,000. So if then you turn around and sell it after you received the house or real estate in an inheritance, then anything above the $500,000, that's what you would pay tax on, not the original $300,000 that they paid for it while they were living. If you're the recipient of that home after a death, then again, that $500,000 in that example is your new kind of principal amount in the house. So really be careful with that. Adding people to real estate while you're still alive can really mess that up. So if you get added to that piece of real estate in that example I just gave, then okay, your cost basis is now back to that $300,000. So that's a big mistake you can do. So again, contact an estate planning attorney in these situations if you need to. It would probably help out.
Yeah, and that's what an advisor does, right? They help you prepare for these things. Make sure you're aware of some mistakes that are out there potentially. And they've learned through the years from experience they've had working with others. And you can benefit from that experience from Black Oak Asset Management by calling 800-388-0085, 800-388-0085. Give that number a call. We have it open for you now as a listener of the show to take advantage of a complimentary consultation. Whether or not it's estate planning you talk about right away, it will be a part of the process down the road with Black Oak, and it all begins at 800-388-0085. I got one more for you, Ryan. These mistakes that people make. Let's talk about taxes. It all comes back to taxes, right? In many cases, not understanding or not considering what those tax implications of your estate are going to be, you're not going to have a lot of efficiency, and you're not going to be able to pass along as much as maybe you would have hoped.
Yeah, and there's kind of two different things when you're talking about taxes when it comes to inheriting an estate. So there's one thing called like an estate tax. So an estate tax is basically levied on assets that are above $13.99 million per person. So essentially a married couple can give away $28 million and not pay estate tax on that. So estate taxes are really high. It's what's above and beyond that. There was a lot of talk when the new tax code came out that potentially that estate tax threshold would go down. But if the tax law sunsetted at the end of this year, it was going to be cut in half. So the estate tax is a much less of an issue for most people. It's still out there. It's still for people who may have a very valuable business or a huge farm or real estate. There still could be some problems there. But an estate tax, that doesn't affect as many people. But then just getting your monies in the right accounts for those who are leaving behind. So moving assets to Roth accounts or just brokerage accounts in general, getting it out of that pre-tax accounts lessens the tax burden on those who are leaving behind. But let's say you just have all your money in a pre-tax account. You're like, I can't afford to move this over a little at a time and pay the tax on it. I just don't want to do that. Well, some people, life insurance is an option. Some people are like, I don't need life insurance anymore because I have no debt. My kids are gone, blah, blah, blah. Well, again, life insurance is still sometimes a tool, not for everybody, but sometimes it is still a tool that you can have and keep. And then there's an influx of money that is not taxed. So that's a benefit you can give someone from a taxation standpoint. It adds to your gross estate, but it doesn't add to your taxable estate. So life insurance still can be a tool. And then, there's different rules that apply depending on when the inheritance was received. So the Secure Act has changed things over time. So a lot of people, if you're just now getting these accounts via an estate plan because someone passed away and you're the beneficiary of it, A lot of these things have a 10-year rule. You have 10 years where you have to take pre-tax and even Roth accounts out. You have a 10-year period where you have to take that money out. It's a new rule. They used to have a stretch IRA where you could stretch it out over your entire lifetime, but that was an inheritance for people who were kind of pre-2019. So there's different rules. And again, another reason why having an advisor would probably help to figure out how much you have to take out and require minimum distributions. There's a lot. So getting your estate in order, especially from a taxation standpoint, is very important.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to keep up with. I mean, it's look, we're all busy with life, right? This is why you work with a financial team of professionals like Black Oak Asset Management has. Ryan is a certified financial planner. His team there will help not with estate planning, but many different areas of planning. And it all begins by calling 800-388-0085. You'll get a complimentary consultation, a 15 to 20-minute call to kind of begin talking through things, 800-388-0085. But Ryan, as we talked about, estate planning is just one very small piece of what you do overall with clients, right?
Yeah, it's a big piece, but yeah, just certainly one of them. And I don't want to put importance over the other, but this is a very important aspect of what we do, and many spokes of the wheel when it comes to retirement planning. But estate is huge, and sometimes it's a mistake that can't be undone if you don't catch it in time.
Absolutely. So begin that process, 800-388-0085. All right, coming up, we're talking about Social Security. We'll update you on the latest COLA increase, talk about some of the myths surrounding Social Security, and more. Stay with us here on Perfect Game Retirement.
Safe at the plate and safe in retirement. Ryan Ledden's got the plan to get you there on Perfect Game Retirement.
Thanks for being with us here on Perfect Game Retirement. I am Ben George with Ryan Ledden, President and Financial Coach, a certified financial planner at Black Oak Asset Management. Ryan, I know we talk about it every week, but I want to give people the opportunity to get their hands on your books that you have put together for people. I know you have the Federal Employees book, I know, which is still top of mind for a lot of people, but that's not the only one you have, right?
That's right. I mean, the Federal Retirement Code kit, that one's definitely, we're ordering more inventory of the supplies. They just, it's such a hot button topic right now with the government shutdown. There was, it was a popular topic even in the beginning of this year with federal employees and kind of the questions of their future. And anyway, so we've had to order more supplies, which we're getting those in. So the Federal Retirement Code's been flying off the shelves. But yeah, there's others like diffusing the retirement threats for people who are on the doorsteps of retirement or maybe just in retirement. So it's a how-to and things and steps to take as you retire. And then there's another one for women, and it's those who are widowed or divorced. And again, still for married women as well, but we kind of focus and really specifically on women in those books. So 3 different kits. We just need correct information as far as addresses go and names. We just need that correct information because we've had a few sent back to us because we don't have the correct address. So make sure that's filled in correctly.
All right, very good. Again, you can get your hands on that right now, 800-388-0085, 800-388-0085. We like to take your questions here on the show as well. If you have them for us, please reach out. But we have one from Kenneth in Johns Creek this week, a good one as we approach the end of the year. He says, I have to start taking my required minimum distributions this year, and I have 3 different IRAs. Should I take some money from each account, or should I take it all from one?
Yeah, great question, Kenneth. Because most people don't know if you have several IRAs, the IRS kind of aggregates those together from a dollar amount standpoint. But they do not care if you take them out of each account or just one. So it really just depends, Kenneth, and me personally, to get like in the weeds of it. I think a lot depends on kind of the different rates of return in the accounts and and how much the R&D is, and maybe on good years where the market's doing really well, take it out of those accounts that are more stock market based or equity based. If the market is getting kicked, if you will, it's in a pullback, maybe take it off more of the IRA that may be more conservative. So again, working with an advisor, I think, would help with that. But it's a great question, Kenneth. It really just depends on what you want to do. You can take your RMDs out of each IRA or just out of one. I think a lot just depends on how the markets are doing. And if you just want to take it out of one and check the box for the RMD for that year, that's fine too. The IRS does not care. They just want their tax revenue.
Yep, that's all they want. So, again, great reason to reach out to Black Oak if you have to do some RMD planning. They can help you with that. 800-388-0085, 800-388-0085. All right, Ryan, some other big news that's happened recently is we got the update on the Social Security COLA increase. I want to give that to people before we get into some of these myths that surround Social Security. So what do we know about what to expect next year?
Yeah, so they did a little bit of a bump, 2.8%, which is kind of reading articles before this. That was kind of the projection. Obviously, the COLA is kind of been dwindling a little bit as far as what the increase is, which is okay because that means inflation is slowing down to some degree, which is great. In some areas it's not, but overall inflation is slowing down. So 2.8% COLA increase. Again, those COLA increases or cost of living adjustments are not guaranteed each year. Social Security Administration announces it around this time each year, October, November, and they let us know what it's going to be for the next year. So that's a little bit of an increase, which is kind of good news for a lot of recipients. And then, there's an extra deduction next year as far as your Social Security. Social Security taxation is not tax-free. There's still, it depends. It depends on what your taxable income is, but there is an extra deduction for those who are 65 years or older. So that's where in the media got a little bit misconstrued. There still could be potentially taxes on your Social Security. It just depends. Again, this is where you need to plan, but it just depends on what your overall taxable income is. But for next year, 2.8 is going to be the increase.
All right, so an update there on Social Security. Now let's get into some of the myths. These are some things that maybe you thought were true about Social Security, but might not be completely accurate. So the first one, there's a perfect time to start collecting Social Security. Ryan, I know that's a myth, right? Because there is no perfect time for everyone.
There is not. And the reason why is because we don't know when we're going to die. So there's all this kind of break-even analysis, which we do. We look at that like, hey, what other assets do we have? What other incomes do we have? So I wish it was a simple, perfect answer for everyone, but there's not. But that's, for me, the fun part of the planning is kind of going through the different scenarios. In the financial planning software we use, you can run a bunch of different scenarios on what ages to take it out, and it'll show your success rates. And it's not always necessarily waiting until 70 for the highest amount because that's the longest you can delay it as of now. 70 is it. You have to start taking it at 70. But again, your situation, the health of you and your spouse, if you're married, earnings, again, just so many things to factor in, but there's no perfect time. It's different for everyone. Now, if you're a single person, maybe that choice is a little bit easier because you're not really leaving a legacy behind as far as a spouse goes, because when it's a husband-wife, then you do have some legacy, like, okay, the higher of the two benefits here is going to carry on forever. So that's when there's a little bit more strategic dialogue when it comes to this. But if you're a single person, yeah, there's still some things to think about. But sometimes it's ultimately, hey, this is when I want to start it. And that shouldn't be the only reason why, but that could be a reason when you're a single filer.
All right, here's myth number 2 that I want to talk about. And this is the one everybody, I think, has been discussing or at least read about or heard about or worried about. Social Security is going to run out of money. So you got to grab everything you can now. So Ryan, help ease our mind a little bit on the projections for Social Security.
Yes, I mean this is a very common topic that we discuss in our offices with our clients. So the projections are showing that Social Security Trust Fund will be quote unquote bankrupt by 2033. It's the myth is that they're going to stop making payments. That's not true. They're saying it could be a reduced benefit. Could that be a legit thing? Sure. And they're saying it's about 77% of the benefits that they're paying now. Could that be a thing by 2033? Sure. I think they're kind of warning people and getting ahead of it, but this is not the first time this has happened. It's happened a couple other times in history because the Social Security was not meant to sustain people for 25, 30, 35 years, and that's what it's been doing for a lot of people. It's a great benefit, but there's a day of reckoning when it comes to how is this going to be paid for. I don't want to scare people into like go ahead and claiming it now just so you know. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just think there'll be other solutions to it. Is it going to be a later retirement age for full retirement age? Right now, anyone born after 1960, the full retirement age is 67. Could they push that back? Yeah, they've done that a couple times before, and it kind of moves the needle. It kicks the can down the road, if you will. So could it be for someone like myself who's born in the 1970s? Could the age be 68? Could it be 69? Sure, they can continue to push that back until 70, or maybe even they push it back further than that. You just don't know. Could they tax us more? Sure. Like right now, if you make in 2025, if you make $176,100, your Social Security is taxed 6.2% up to that number. They call that the wage base. Anything over that $176,100, you don't pay Social Security tax anymore. So if you have a good income, you may see your pay toward the end of the year bump up a little bit. You're like, what? Why did I get a pay increase? Well, maybe you get 6.2% more because you reach that wage base. Now for next year, it goes up to $184,500. So they move that up. Could they move that up even more? Sure. Is that going to affect a lot of people? Well, no, but incomes are increasing, so that could be more taxation for other people. So again, those are just a few examples of what they could do. So don't be terrified that this thing's going bankrupt and your Social Security paycheck is going away. It's not. Could it be reduced? Yeah, quite possibly it could, but I personally don't think that's going to happen.
All right, one more Social Security myth to bust here before we close out today's show. The decisions about Social Security have nothing to do with other financial considerations you need to make. So, Ryan, I know this all works together, right, when you're doing planning. Every decision affects the others within your plan.
It does. I mean, especially if you're still working. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm still going to be working, but I want to claim my Social Security. Well, if you claim it before your full retirement age and you're still working, chances are you're going to get even more of a reduced benefit. Not only are you getting a reduced benefit because you're claiming it before your full retirement age, so actuarially speaking, it is going to be reduced. But if you make over certain thresholds, then it's going to be reduced even more. Now, not permanently, like claiming it at an early age, but as long as you're making earned income, and it's not a whole lot. I mean, I don't think it's just over $23,000. I think if you make more than $23,000, then your Social Security benefit check is going to be reduced because of your income. Then if you get to a certain point, it could be reduced all the way to zero, depending on your income. Again, that's not a permanent thing, but it can reduce it even more on top of claiming it early. So man, there's so much. If you're still working full time and you don't need Social Security and you're before your full retirement age, I almost 100% of the time tell people not to claim it because there's just no point and it's going to reduce it. So just keep pushing it down the road. And if you retire and it's before your full retirement age and you retire, that's okay. Then, okay, let's make a decision on do we claim it now or do we still wait? Because there's still those guaranteed increases by the federal government that the longer you wait, the bigger your benefit's going to be. So a lot of things to consider. For me, it's a fun conversation to have because there's so many moving parts to this.
There sure are. And again, there's a lot of moving parts within the plan overall, which is why you want to work with a certified financial planner like Ryan at Black Oak Asset Management. 800-388-0085 to schedule a time to meet with him. Set up a complimentary consultation right now at 800-388-0085. They have offices in Alpharetta, Macon, and Lawrenceville. And it all begins with a phone call. 800-388-0085. Packed a lot into today's show, Ryan, but I think some great information. Appreciate everyone listening this week. Been a very good show, and hopefully if you have questions, you'll reach out. But Ryan, as always, thanks for your time. Hope you have a good week.
Enjoyed it.
Information provided is for informational purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Please consult with a qualified professional before taking any action. Securities and registered investment advisory services offered through Silver Oak Securities, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Black Oak Asset Management and Silver Oak Securities, Inc. are not affiliated.